Don't move to Florida if you're afraid of storms or if you don't like crazy, drastic weather changes. Hey, this is going to be a boring one. Grab some coffee, grab a Red Bull, whatever that may be, but it's an important one. If you're thinking about moving to the Florida area, no matter if it's here along the Panhandle or down south, we get hurricanes. Yes, we get hurricanes, and you have to be prepared. You have to be ready for when that time comes. And you know what? I'm doing this video because we are approaching hurricane season, and I get a lot of people that ask about where they should live so they're not impacted by a storm, right? Or they think that they should live really, really far from the water because it's safer. Those things can be incorrect, right? But you got to stick around. We're going to go over a whole hurricane preparation setup, what to do, what to have, what to look for, no matter if it's, a generator or flashlights, any of that kind of stuff. So make sure you stick around if you want to be informed, because you know what? Hurricanes do happen. My name's Tim Eklund. Welcome to the channel. We love being the area's #1 relocation team. So thank you. We love helping people relocate from all over the world. But you know what? Hurricanes are scary. They're scary for people, and storms in general are scary. But the thing is, if you're prepared, they should not be that bad. Okay. Now, I do want to address one thing, and that is, just because you live closer to the water doesn't mean that you're going to be impacted even more. Unless I get people like, oh, well, what about flooding? So, unless you are right on the water, storm surge probably is not going to affect where you live, unless you're in a spot like Navy Point that is like on the water, so many spots you could be blocks away and still have a very low elevation. And so you could be impacted by storm surge. I actually was helping someone relocate here recently, and the flood policy that the current owners had was around $1,700. Well, we got another quote, and it came in much less. But one thing I explained to the buyers, and once we got an elevation certificate, most likely that policy was going to go up from the $1,000 that it was quoted, probably up to the $1,700, if not more, right? Because that insurer wants to see what that elevation is. So whenever you get a survey, if you need an elevation certificate, that's what they're gonna do that at that time, and then that's really going to help with that insurance company, that provider, on how much they're going to charge for flood insurance. You could be up in Cantonment, Milton, Pace, northern part of Pensacola, and get more damage than you could along the water because of the wind, right? Wind is really what causes some of the biggest damages in a hurricane, outside of the storm surge if you're right there along the water. But if you watch this video here on Sally, I documented that, and that thing just lingered, right? And we had some more damage from some of the barges letting loose than anything. But that storm surge came up underneath Graffiti Bridge. I actually downloaded, I have this really cool elevation app, and it is called My Elevation. And it'll tell you exactly what the elevation is. So right now at my office, the elevation, oh, you really can't see it, is 10 feet. But when we had Sally downtown, down off Main Street, it flooded, right? Rain, all that kind of stuff really kind of held down there. That's why they're redoing a lot of the storm pipes here along Palafox. But I live in East Hill, and earlier I was looking, and I'm at 70 feet where my house is. So I'm pretty safe when it comes to storm surge. We just have to be ready for wind, okay? So what is up with the wind? Well, that's where trees are gonna get blown down, or your roof is gonna get pulled apart, shingles are gonna get ripped up. But more, I think it's the trees that fall down, trees that fall on, power lines, because a lot of the power lines here are above ground. So a tree falls on that, blows up the box, and everybody's out of power, right? So I think one of the first things that I would recommend, and this is what I did, is we bought a generator. Let me show you. So we had bought this generator. It was from Harbor Freight. This one's actually cool now. It's got a remote start and everything, which is pretty neat. But we bought this, and then I had my electrician hook up the outside panel of our house to be able to, if the power goes out, to be able to plug the generator in to the house. I didn't want to spend 5, 6, 7 grand, however much those big Generacs are. Let's see how much those suckers are. Generac whole home generator. Let's see if these suckers have prices on them. That's a free estimate, so probably nice and expensive. So they're probably a pretty penny, right? Let's see if anything here on Lowe's, if it'll tell us how much they are. No, see, they don't have the big ones. So anyways, we got that. We got this exact model, the Predator, and I was able to plug that in and run our house when Sally came. We had lights. We were able to run fans. We had a couple portable AC units that were able to run. And then, we have a gas hot water heater. We had a gas stove. So our fridge was able to keep our food. The boys were able to watch movies on the TV. We were able to cast onto the TV from our phones. We're able to charge our phones, that kind of stuff. So I think that was one of the best investments, was buying this generator and having, an electrician hook it up to the house to be able to go out and turn it on. And then if you ever need to take this generator somewhere else, you go camping, you got it. So multi-use, multi-purpose generator, which is nice. And this one, like I said, having the remote start is pretty cool. But you can see all the different plugs. And instead of, there's a lot of people that will just plug, things into these outlets, and then run it through the extension cord through their house, and plug things in. I think if you have the funds to buy one of these and to have an electrician hook it up to your house, so one of the best investments, because then you're able to, keep your house running. Now, if you don't have the funds to do that, start saving, right? I think it's one of the best things, I think, for your mental state, to not be out of power for a week. We were able to take hot showers, able to eat, everything like that. So it was nice. But if you don't have the means to do that, then maybe you better get a different generator. But I think, when it comes to being prepared, that's the thing about a hurricane, is you typically are aware that it's coming. Okay. So having, batteries, having flashlights, having, chargers, and it depends on how bad that hurricane. Do you need to, get all of your medical, and all of your, important documents, have those in a, maybe a travel, travel size safe, birth certificates, social security cards, that kind of stuff. I don't know what kind of hurricane would have to come for me to actually have to leave. When Sally came, we stayed, and it was actually pretty cool, because I had never seen the humanitarian part of a hurricane, and people come together to help each other. People out. I went and bought a chainsaw and was walking around the neighborhood helping people cut limbs and stack things up. And then, there's companies that come with these big trucks and these big claws, and they just start grabbing all of the trees and the limbs and everything like that, and to go and get chopped up. Now, if you're in a spot where, you could flood, I'd probably get out, because, if your car gets submerged, that would really suck. Being able to replace some drywall or something like that, might not be as bad. But I think if you are close enough on the water, if you are on the ground, you should be really prepared to probably get out. But I think also with a preparation being prepared, let's see what they put in these little hurricane preparation kits, that you can buy or they recommend. So water, definitely something to drink. Now, we have the big 5-gallon jugs that get delivered to our house. And so when Sally came, we had them, bring us a couple extra jugs. I mean, I think we had like 25 gallons of water on hand, but also gas too. So, people start going and filling up gas cans. One thing that was kind of crazy to me is people were here waiting in line for like 3 hours for gas. I was like, I'm not going to wait that long. I just jumped on the freeway and went to Buc-ee's, right? Went to Buc-ee's, got a bunch of gas, got some snacks, got some, the good old Buc-ee's stuff, and then came back. So, instead of waiting in line, kind of just made it. And, there's probably plenty of gas stations outside of the area that you can go and get gas. But that is one of those things, especially if you're running a generator, you want to have enough gas. But also, one of the things that I noticed is that the gas stations that closed down, yes, some of them ran out of gas, but there was plenty of them that didn't run out of gas, but they had to close because they didn't have power to be able to pump the gas. So that's another thing you got to think about. People are like, oh, we're running out of gas. No, they just didn't have the power to even pump the gas. So one of those things you definitely want to, make sure you're prepared for. And so let's see here. It says food, non-perishable, easy to prepare items, canned goods, protein bars, things like that. I guess definitely if you are going to have canned goods, make sure you have a manual can opener. Or else you'll be stabbing it with a screwdriver or something like that. Lights, radios, flashlights, not candles, because obviously you can cause a fire. Battery powered or hand crank weather radio. Okay, that's probably a good idea, but I guess if you have a cell phone nowadays, probably don't need that unless you don't have a way to charge it. Extra batteries, portable power banks, or solar chargers for phones. First aid kits, definitely probably a good idea. I have a first aid kit in my truck, so we'd be good there. And some tools. I don't really know what tools you might need. Safety, a whistle, or a way to signal for help. Shelter, blankets, sleeping bags. And then if you have a baby, make sure you have any of that kind of stuff ready for a baby. Or if you have your animal, don't forget the animals, pet food, water, toys, things like that. Because, pets, they get anxiety as well. And they get freaked out. So make sure you have, you're able to help with the pets. Now here we go. It talks about documents, store insurance policies, medical records, ID, bank records. I mean, most of that stuff's probably, electronic anyways. But here you go. Keep cash on hand as ATMs will not work without power, right? Kind of like we just talked about with the gas. Store items in easy to carry on watertight containers. So, you can get like those dry bags, probably a good idea. Make sure like if you are going to stay around, make sure you're prepared to get out if there is a crazy emergency. If that, that storm, you think it's going to be a 3 and then it goes to a 5, be ready, be prepared to hit the road if there's a mandatory evacuation. Because remember, your life is not important. Your life is more important than dying over a stupid storm, or keeping. I was like, hey, I don't want to go. I want to be here to help. And if something does happen to my house, I want to be able to address it right away. I don't want there to, I don't want to come home to, a house full of water because of something I could have, prevented. And I guess if you do leave, I'd probably recommend maybe, turning off the water at the street, so that way you don't have to worry about that. But definitely when it comes to hurricanes, you want to be prepared. That is the most important thing. Being prepared, if you are going to leave, don't wait till the last minute to where there's a million people leaving at the same time, right? Because no matter where you're at, there's probably only a couple ways in and out. So if you're traveling on the 10 east or west, or if you're going up north 65 or something like that, there's only a couple ways. And if everybody's leaving at the same time, it's going to be jam-packed, and it's probably going to give you more anxiety, more stress of just sitting on the road bumper to bumper than it would be if you were at your house. So when it comes to hurricanes, I know it's a boring subject, but you want to be prepared. Make sure you're ready. And if you have any questions, make sure you hit me up. My name's Tim Eklund, 850-637-8622. Later. Stay safe out there.